In 2006, something peculiar happened in Kyiv, Ukraine. Witnesses saw a young man in his early 20s standing in front of a high-rise apartment building looking lost and confused. He approached two police officers and asked for directions to a place that didn't exist. His identification documents were issued by the Soviet Union, which no longer existed, and according to his birthdate, he was born in 1932. Fast forward to 2011, a Russian documentary called The Time Traveler shed some light on this strange incident. The documentary focused on Sergei Ponomarenko, who seemed to be slipping in and out of time. In his first encounter with eyewitnesses, he was seen standing at an intersection in Kyiv, wearing clothes that were 50 years out of fashion but looked new. He asked everyone he met how to get to Peknaya Street, but no one had ever heard of it. Police officer Sergei Ponomarenko and his partner noticed Ponomarenko's strange behavior and approached him. He again asked for directions to Peknaya Street, but when they looked at a map, they found out that it was just a landfill. Officer Ponomarenko then took notice of Ponomarenko's vintage clothing that looked brand new and an antique camera around his neck that was also 50 years out of fashion. What really caught Officer Ponomarenko's attention was Ponomarenko's identification, which showed that he was born in Kyiv in 1932, making him 74 years old. But here he was, looking no older than 25. They took him to a private psychiatric clinic, where everything was captured on video. Ponomarenko didn't want to go to the clinic, but he had no other option than to be arrested for vagrancy. It was in the clinic that things got even stranger. The identification papers were dated 1958, but they were like new. The photograph looked similar to Ponomarenko, but it was hard to believe that it could be him. They assumed he was out of his mind and needed psychiatric help. In the CCTV footage, he appears vexed and fretful, a sight that made the receptionist uneasy. Upon his arrival, confusion enveloped him like a shroud, and he gazed incessantly at my mobile phone, as though entranced by it. The patient refused to part with any of his belongings, including his coat and camera, a premonition of the difficulties we were to face. Astonishingly, he appeared exactly as he did on the day of his disappearance, a feat of age-defying proportions. However, the photograph background confounded us all, for it showed the towering motherland statue looming over his right shoulder, which undoubtedly places him in Kyiv. Yet, investigators who scoured the exact spot where the picture was taken discovered a skyline that did not correspond with Kyiv's current appearance. Kyiv, as it stands now, does not boast of such skyscraping buildings, but the most bewildering thing of all was the note on the back of the photograph addressed to Valentina, penned by Sergei himself, stating that all was well, and he would return when he could. A clear indication that he had leapt into the future once more. The exact time of his arrival is unknown, given Kyiv's expansion and the devastation it had suffered. As of 2011, he had not contacted Valentina, nor had he been sighted in the city. This mystery, it seems, will endure for a long, long time. The idea of time travel has been a prevalent feature of science fiction since time immemorial. As far back as 1770, Louis Sebastian Mercier wrote the year 2440, where the protagonist voyages centuries into the future. Charles Dickens' A Christmas Carol, published in 1843, delves into time travel in both directions. H.G. Wells' The Time Machine, released in 1895, revolutionized the genre. These are, however, works of fiction. But can we travel through time, and if so, how? The answer is a resounding yes. Traveling to the future is feasible. In 1905, Einstein formulated his special theory of relativity, where he showed that moving clocks tick slower than stationary ones. The faster an object moves, the slower time moves. Therefore, if we want to journey 100 years into the future, we need a spacecraft that can hurtle at 99.995% of the speed of light and fly to a location 50 light-years away before turning back to Earth. We know for a fact that venturing into the future is possible. Imagine a century gone by, but with great speed on your side, it merely feels like a year has flown by. We're talking about time travel, and this theory has been put to the test and proven in the real world. How? By mounting an incredibly precise clock on an airplane and cruising it in the same direction as the Earth's rotation. Once it lands, the clock shows a slightly later time than the ones on the ground. This phenomenon is known as special relativity, a concept that Einstein introduced to the world in 1915 through the general theory of relativity. This theory illuminates gravity as a geometric feature of spacetime or four-dimensional space, presenting spacetime as a fabric or a continuum that curves around any form of matter in its vicinity. But, hang on, not everyone has a rocket scientist's brain. So, let's break it down further. The more significant the gravitational force, the slower time moves. This is called gravitational time dilation. Still, even that may be too much to chew for some. Imagine you watched Interstellar. Remember when Matthew McConaughey and his team land on a planet close to the black hole? Well, the gravitational force there is so intense that for every hour they spend on the planet, 7 years zoom by on Earth. That's how gravity can affect the passage of time. A less McConaughey-esque example would be the GPS satellites that orbit around the Earth, approximately 12,000 miles away from the surface. The lower gravitational force up there causes time to move faster. Therefore, the clocks on the satellites have to be adjusted to match the slower moving time down here on the planet. Without these adjustments, GPS would not function. Time travel to the future is a captivating concept, but what about the past? The idea of traveling back in time is a topic of much debate among physicists, as not all believe it to be possible. However, according to Einstein's theories, time travel to the past is theoretically achievable by bending or warping spacetime. By doing so, one could take a shortcut from point A to point B, faster than the speed of light. This, in turn, could cause spacetime to wrap around itself, creating a cylinder-like shape, enabling travel back in time. Your path through time, or world line, is always moving towards the future. However, if spacetime is significantly twisted, it could be possible to circle back and visit events from your own past. This, of course, would require an enormous amount of energy, potentially equivalent to that of an exploding star. While our civilization may not be capable of such an undertaking, a more advanced society could potentially harness this technology. Perhaps, the strange occurrence that Sergei Ponomarenko captured in his photograph was an advanced civilization utilizing this method of time travel. Could it be that he stumbled upon a wormhole or a rip in the fabric of spacetime? We've all heard the tale of Sergei Ponomarenko, and it led us to the realization that time travel is, in theory, possible. However, is this story truly authentic? The numerous articles and videos circulating online merely retell each other's versions of the story, and none of them are accurate. Today, you shall discover the genuine account since I was able to locate and translate the original, full-length documentary in Russian, which was no small feat. Surprisingly, there are indications of a hoax in the documentary. For starters, the credits include a casting director, which could be justified for scenes that were dramatized. However, the police officer claimed that Sergei appeared on Tuesday, April 23, 2006, whereas the lobby camera indicates Wednesday, April 23. The actual date was Sunday, which is entirely different from both accounts. Additionally, during Sergei's first visit to the doctor, he stated that he was born in June 1932, while his ID indicated a March birth during his second visit to the same doctor. Moreover, the time was 10:39 a.m. on April 25. Thus, the dates and times are inconsistent, which is a major issue if you're writing a time travel narrative. It's disappointing to say, but this story is a fake. Despite that, it's still one of the best time travel tales out there. The actors were convincing, and the pictures were fantastic, as long as you didn't pay close attention. So why are we so captivated by the concept of time travel? Perhaps because time is one of the few things in life that is fair and impartial for everyone, and no one can manipulate it. No matter how rich or powerful you may become, time always triumphs. Time travel allows us to ponder the possibilities of the future, what might exist long after we're gone. It also serves as a reminder of the impossibilities of the past, of the decisions we made, the regrets, and the mistakes we made. How many times have you wished you could go back and change something? Maybe you would have avoided saying something foolish in class or stood up to that neighborhood bully or treated that bus riding geek more kindly. Stop dwelling on the past. Perhaps you would have taken that business idea, learned a new language, or traveled the world. Nevertheless, there is a trick we can employ to regain some control over time. When faced with a tough decision, I always try to think ahead, envisioning my future self in 10 or 20 years, looking back on this very moment with regret. I know that I don't want to be plagued with thoughts of what ifs and should haves when I reach the end of my journey. That's why I believe in taking chances, being kinder, and not sweating the small stuff. Time is precious, and we all have a limited amount of it. So let's make the most of it and be good to our future selves. As we journey through life, let's aim to create a tapestry of memories that we can look back on with pride and joy. We don't want to have any regrets or feel like we missed out on opportunities. Let's seize the moment and make the most of every opportunity that comes our way. And hey, if you're having fun or learning something new, don't forget to show some love to the Wonder Minds by subscribing, sharing, commenting, and liking. Your support means the world to us, and it helps us continue creating content that you love. That's why I believe in taking chances, being kinder, and not sweating the small stuff. Time is precious, and we all have a limited amount of it. So let's make the most of it and be good to our future selves. As we journey through life, let's aim to create a tapestry of memories that we can look back on with pride and joy. We don't want to have any regrets or feel like we missed out on opportunities. Let's seize the moment and make the most of every opportunity that comes our way. And hey, if you're having fun or learning something new, don't forget to show some love to the Wonder Minds by subscribing, sharing, commenting, and liking. Your support means the world to us, and it helps us continue creating content that you love.